The Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by BASF.
Welcome to the Pulse School here on RealAgriculture.com. I've got with me now Meagan Reed. She's the agronomy manager with Saskatchewan Pulse Growers. Hello, Meagan.
Hi, Lindsay. Thank you for having me.
Well, I am told, and I am so glad there is someone who has this title, that you have all the things we need to know about Aphanomyces. And maybe that's a pretty tall order. But let's start with, Aphanomyces, what is the scope of this problem for pulse growers in Saskatchewan?
The scope of this problem, so pea and lentil acres are our large acre pulse crops that we grow in the province. And there isn't an acre essentially that is resistant or is unaffected, I would say, by Aphanomyces root rot. And so it's far-reaching. It is causing significant economic losses to our growers, and it is causing we've seen a decline in pulse acres over the last number of years, and I think largely in part, I mean, there are other issues, but one of the key drivers for that is trying to manage Aphanomyces because we don't have a lot of options for management, and rotation management is one of the only things we have right now.
Mm-hmm. But that rotation, so let's maybe go through sort of what the plan is ahead of any growing season, but this one in particular, but ahead of any growing season, what is sort of the list that you're going through of, the options we do have for trying to manage this disease?
Yeah, so for a grower or an agronomist, if I'm sitting here at this time of year, it's November, we're starting to do rotation planning. What we really know so far about this disease is it's complex, and we actually call it part of the root rot complex. So it's multifaceted, but it really comes down to basic agronomics. And so having a really good fertility package is showing to have some, just general plant health benefits. We know this, but also gives the plant an ability to be a little bit more resilient. So start with a good fertility package. I would look at your disease testing on your seed lot. So do a full disease profile, get your germ and vigor. Seed-borne diseases are part of this root rot complex that also can aggravate Aphanomyces infections like Fusarium. So make sure that you know what those levels are. Use a seed treatment. I know there are some pulse acres out there, pea and lentil, that don't get seed treated. I would highly recommend, if you're putting in pea or lentil, seed treat. And there are some products on the market that do offer suppression of Aphanomyces on their label under low risk situations. So if you are at all concerned, look at that. There are also commercial labs available that do offer soil testing that can give you an idea of a yes/no of whether you have Aphanomyces oospores in your soil. And so I would recommend growers collect their soil and then submit it for a bait test. And this is important, not just a bulk soil test, but a bait test. So what happens is they take that soil, they saturate it, plant a little pea or lentil seedling in it, let it sit there for 7 days, and then do a DNA extraction from the tissue of the seedling, and gives a more accurate read because that host plant is there.
Right. This is one of the things that's sort of fascinating about this disease and just the root rot complex in general, is that that's just it. We might get a yes, no, is it there or is it not? But it doesn't necessarily give us a severity test, right?
That's one of the things that we're lacking right now. And there's a ton of ongoing work and research in this area. Dr. Shama Chatterton is one of the leads in root rot research in general, and she's put a lot of effort into and continuing to work in this area. But that is one of the things that is on our radar as a crop commodity group and industry-wide, just looking at developing qualitative and quantitative soil tests to help give producers a better idea to be able to evaluate what their risk level is outside of just managing rotation.
Right. And then let's just quickly touch on, so you did touch on that we do have some suppression in some products. And in general, again, it's a complex. So the healthier you can keep that plant. Right. And there are other root rots that we have to worry about too. So good to have an option, right? But it is also one that can show up a bit later
Hmm.
if we've got wet conditions. So
Yeah.
we know that pea and lentil are really susceptible compared to others. Are we talking 1 in 6 years, 1 in 8 years? Is there a rule of thumb?
Um, Honestly, it depends on a lot of things. So the number of times you've had pea or lentil in rotation in the last, how often? So if you were running 1 in 3 and the last couple times you grew them, you had really wet soil and your
Mm.
yields declined, you might be looking at 6 to 8 years. You could be looking at 10. There are growers in the province that are at 10 years rotation on pea and lentil right now.
Wow.
This past year, we saw some pretty heavy rain events, particularly in that Rosetown area, and guys who hadn't had pure lentil in their soil since 2016
Still
just happened
some.
to have, yeah, so it was a wet year in
Uh,
2016, root rot was off the charts. They hadn't put anything in since then, and then this year they put it in. It was a 7-year, 8-year rotation, and they got hit
Still.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, because those oospores, those resting spores, are so long-lived.
Yeah. How important is it then in season to scout for and identify Aphanomyces? If you think that's what it is, how important is that?
Yeah, so it comes back to managing your rotation going out. Once the crop's in the ground and once you're starting to see impacts of disease, there's nothing we can do. There's no product you can apply.
Right.
It's kind of a done deal at that point. But in order to inform your future decision making, it's really important. So if we get to middle of June, end of June, seed treatment's worn off, get some heavy rains, and crop's not looking super healthy, go out and dig some plants, dig up some roots. And if there's browning or that honey colored distinctive Aphanomyces infection color or a really dark brown, almost black, that could be fusarium, I would highly suggest collecting those plant samples and sending them into a lab that can do a DNA extraction and get confirmation on what pathogens
Mm.
are present. And then when it comes back to that rotation again, it's not only important just to look at when was the last time we had a pure lentil in, but what were the conditions
Mm.
when that pure lentil was grown. Because if it was a dry year,
Yeah.
you didn't build that spore load in the soil. So there's
Right.
less risk. But that's a key part of that is assessing the environmental conditions the last time.
Okay. So there is an app that farmers could use. Tell me about this, Meagan.
So Dr. Steve Shitliff from the University of Saskatchewan has developed a platform. I'm not sure how the functionality is on a mobile phone as of yet. It's still in progress, but he has launched it online, and so growers can actually go on. It's called AREA, so Aphanomyces Risk Evaluation App,
Oh,
shortened
smart.
for AREA.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
like it.
what a grower can do is go online and plug in their land location, find their piece of land. This is really important also for guys who are renting land or picking
Yes.
up new land and they want to know
Yes.
what the risk is. And it will pull the crop history data and then do an evaluation and give you a risk of low, moderate, or high risk for Aphanomyces
Cool.
if you were to plant the next year. So
Right.
pairing that with rotation planning, soil bait testing, seed testing. These are the things that we have as tools right now that growers can utilize, and then just good basic agronomics
Mm-hmm.
where we're at with everything.
Yes. And so it's a really good point you bring up though, and I'm really glad that this app even is coming into existence and being used, because if you're missing records, so whether that great point, whether you're picking up land that isn't familiar to you, or whether you've lost your records or didn't keep records, especially if you're in a 6 or 8 year rotation, that can be that one more piece of the puzzle to try and put that risk profile together. So yeah, really great. Okay, Meagan, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.